Well, thanks to everybody for joining us today for an update of our class of 1984 reunion campaign and another conversation with one of our classmates. Mark Stevens couldn't join us today, so I'll try to pull this one off on my own. Today I'm catching up with Virgil Alfaro, and we're going to get to that conversation in just a minute. But Virgil's been very generous with his time and his financial contributions to the Citadel over the years, and felt like that would be a great conversation for us to have today. First, let me kind of catch us up on how we're doing in the campaign. We're recording this on July the 9th, so we don't have final June numbers yet, but with an overall goal of $1,984,000, we're currently over $2.7 million contributed by our class. With a goal of $500,000 for our class scholarship, we've exceeded $600,000 for that scholarship. And class participation so far is at 51%. So just over half of the class has participated. You know, we have a goal of 65%. The class has been very generous already and very engaged with our class campaign. So thanks to everybody watching for that. With about 4 months to go before we all gather together at the Citadel for a few days of celebration, and then our campaign will wrap up at the end of this year. So there's still plenty of time for those who haven't yet joined with us in giving, or those who want to further enhance their gifts that they've already made. And while we're talking about the reunion, if you haven't registered for homecoming in November, please do so by August the 13th. The team this year, who does such a great job of every year putting these reunions together, is going to send your swag out before the actual reunion, so we don't have to distribute it during those first few busy days in November. And that's why we had to back up the registration to August the 13th. So please mark your calendar, make sure you don't let that date pass you by. And let's get a large crowd there for our celebration in November. So with all that housekeeping and a true appreciation for this class's generosity, let's turn the conversation over to our friend Virgil. So Virgil, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your engagement with the Citadel, your generosity over the years. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to for the last 40 years.
Mark, it's good to see you. Most of my life after the Citadel has been dedicated to my medical practice, getting trained, and then my practice itself. I graduated in '84 and went to medical school in New York City, up at Cornell, and then from there went to UCLA, spent 4 years there, and then went on to Yale, did my retina training, and then spent 4 years on active duty as an Air Force retina specialist in Washington, D.C. In D.C., I was at the three major military hospitals at Walter Reed, Bethesda Naval, and Andrews Air Force Base. After my 4 years in the Air Force, I came down to Charleston, spent 2 years on the faculty at MUSC, and then opened my practice in 1998, 99. And since that time, I'm the senior partner. We have an 8-person retina group with offices from Myrtle Beach down to Hilton Head and Bluffton. Most of my time is spent clinically doing surgery and seeing patients. And then I've had a very long-standing dedication and commitment to the pre-med committee at the Citadel. Right now I have 5 Citadel alumni working in my office in various aspects of the practice, mostly in clinical trials, and then cadets who are interested in healthcare come spend a year or two here, and then we launch them to the next phase. Just recently, we've sent 2 Citadel guys to medical school, and that's sort of what I've been up to. Right now, I've funded what's called the MCAT boot camp and dedicated about $250,000 to organize every summer a boot camp dedicated to prepping and preparing pre-medical students for the MCATs. So that's been most of what I've been up to, Mark, in terms of my career and my dedication to the Citadel.
You know, it's a great point you make, Virgil, that there are a lot of ways to get involved with the school. We've had others on um, these calls who've kind of focused their contributions to different schools on campus and involvement with those different purposes. And I think that's wonderful. You mentioned the gift that you gave, I think, early in 2023. And the timing was great because it counts as part of our class campaign as well. So thank you for that very generous contribution. And that was for if I'm right, was it a military focused pre-med and pre-health contribution? Is that right?
Well, the program initially, conceptually, was to target cadets that were interested in healthcare in the military, and that sort of has morphed and evolved into organizing ways to improve the applications of all pre-medical students at the Citadel. Getting back to your comment about different ways to provide support of the school, you know, I think that every industry that one could be in the private sector or the public sector after graduation, there's an element or a piece at the Citadel where one can use their strengths and their experiences in those spaces and give back to the Citadel. You know, I've chosen medicine and military medicine because those are the two pieces that I do for my professional life. But clearly, there's other ways and other avenues to support the Citadel.
You mentioned your practice. Go ahead and give us the name for that. Give a plug out for your the company.
Well, it's called Retina Consultants of Charleston, and we are now changing the name as we speak to Retina Consultants of South Carolina. And it's an 8-person group. Actually, there's one of my partners is a Citadel class of 1987, John Carrison, who was valedictorian of his class. He's a really special, talented surgeon and academician, and also dedicates a lot of his time to the Citadel and the pre-med program. Over the years, there's been several alumni that have stepped up to help out the pre-med program. I'm sort of probably the third or fourth iteration or generation of those doctors who are in Charleston. We actively recruit cadets and actually sometimes prefer the non-pre-meds because there's a big space and industry in clinical trials. Right now, I've got 2 cadets that have recently graduated, 2 alumni, and we are getting them organized towards a career in clinical trials, the administrative piece of clinical trials.
And I think you're also on the advisory council for the School of Math and Sciences. Is that right?
Correct.
Good. So again, a lot of ways for our classmates to get involved, not just financially. You also have a suite at the stadium, right?
Yes, right. Interestingly, I have 2 non-pre-med students who are football players who I sort of recruited. They started working in my office, and I told them they should go to the Citadel, and hopefully they'll inspire and become important pieces on the football field and in the Corps Cadets.
Well,
I go to all the games. I go to all the football games, enjoy them, even though we've had some challenges and headwinds with the football team, but it's still good to go there and see our friends and classmates and enjoy the ambiance.
It's a new year, Virgil. Hope springs eternal.
Well, I sort of I see the football games as a social event. If we win, that's great. If we keep it close, it's great, and that's what I hope for.
Well, and I pointed out because that is another very significant way to contribute to the school as well by sponsoring on-campus events like that. So thank you for that. It's been a really good conversation. I've enjoyed catching up with you. Thank you again for your contributions to the school. And I like the discussion about just the many ways that one can contribute to the school. I'm not there. I'm in Birmingham, but still, there are a lot of things we can each do to continue contribute to the school.
You know, what's interesting about the Citadel now is that historically it's a liberal arts college. And like when you and I were there, you know, there was a requirement to do language and literature and history. And I think, you know, that is still true, but there's a whole new area of academics there in cybersecurity, uh, uh, engineering that is, you know, really has made the school a much more interesting and diverse place academically and scholastically. And I think the leadership at the Citadel, especially in Bon Hall, has done great things. The current provost is a spectacular person, a woman who I think is an amazing role model for our female cadets. And you know, all those things together, I see the school heading in a direction where our academic achievements are going to be even more so in the future.
No, I agree. And thank you for pointing out Sally. We've actually lined her up for one of these conversations as well soon. And she's an inspiration for the male cadets too. She's quite an impressive person. I remember with the summer camp last year, I don't know if you saw the pictures of her attending the Army summer camp with the Army students. And the picture was her on top of the 80-foot rappelling tower about to go off of that as well. So fascinating person, and really between the president, the provost, the commandant, the school is in some really wonderful hands these days.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you, Mark. I think the current leadership that we have, the commandant and the provost and the president, there's a new sort of style of leadership that has this view and a perspective of society as it exists today, and the needs of society in government and in the private sector that are different than they were when we graduated. And the Citadel is filling those spaces in special ways and important ways that I think that I'm very proud of, and it's good to see that.
Well, once again, thank you again for your contributions. That gives them the resources to continue to make those investments and adjustments as society changes and as the needs of education change. So really thankful and great, wonderful to see our class do so much. You've done a significant contribution to them over the years, and cumulatively, our class has done something significant through this campaign that we have going on right now. There's still time for everyone to get involved. Again, we go through the end of the year. And I would just ask again, August 13th, that's the end of the deadline for the reunion this year. November for the reunion itself, and end of the year for continuing to contribute to our class campaign. Thank you, Virgil, for joining me. Thanks to each of you for your generosity.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Go Dogs.